Howdy, I'm Dr. Dennis Sigler, Extension Horse Specialist for Texas AgriLife Extension, coming to you from the great state of Texas. I want to talk to you a little bit about conformation and selection of young performance prospects. One of the things that we need to talk about is how conformation affects performance. Obviously, there are a lot of things that we do in the selection of our halter horses that may not actually be conducive to a horse being able to perform. But basically, one of the things that we look for to begin with is balance. Horse has got to be balanced in order to be a good performance horse. And this is true whether we're talking about race horses, whether we're talking about reining horses, cutting horses, pleasure horses. We've got to have balance. A horse that's balanced is able to carry themselves well and do the maneuver that we're asking them to do. They're able to run down the racetrack. And so what are the things that determine balance? Well, the first thing that we look at is to see if this horse divides up evenly into basically three parts. We look at the length of the shoulder from the front of the chest to the base of the withers, and then we look from this point to the point of the hip, and then we look at the length of the hip. And a horse that's well balanced should divide up fairly evenly in three parts. And if you think about that, what we're really looking for is a lot of length and slope to the shoulder. And we measure slope to the shoulder from the middle of the scapula up here to the point of the shoulder. And this horse has a very nice sloping shoulder if we look at it right through here. Okay, that is going to enable this horse to not only be smooth in his gaits, hit the ground smoothly and not have a short choppy stride, but also allows this horse to reach out further in front. So we want a long sloping shoulder, whether we're talking about a race horse, a pleasure horse, a cutting horse, reining horse, barrel horse, whatever type of pleasure horse or a performance horse that we're talking about. We need this shoulder to be long and sloping. We want a horse to be deep in the barrel. We want to have some depth of heart here, and we'd like for the heart girth to be much longer through here than we are through the flank area. Okay, so we also look at the length of underline. When we're looking for a balanced horse, we're looking for a long underline compared to a short top line. We want a nice strong loin area because this is the part that's going to support the saddle. A horse that's weak in the loin is going to sooner or later develop some weaknesses up here and is not going to be a top performance horse. We want a lot of strength and length back here in the hip because these are the driving muscles. This is what is going to enable this horse to perform at whatever event that we ask them to perform at. Then when we start, after we've assessed the balance and the overall conformation of the horse, we want to look at just the amount of muscling that this horse has. In order to be a performance horse, they're going to have a certain amount of muscling. And depending on the type of performance that we're going to ask this horse to do, that may be a lot of muscling. For example, a race horse, we may want a little more muscling in the rear end than we would for a typical show pleasure horse. A cutting horse and a reining horse that uses their rear end a lot in their stops and turns is going to have a tremendous amount of muscling and a strong loin and a strong hip. So muscling is important, but not to the extreme that we see sometimes in our show halter horses. I think in selection of a young prospect, one of the most important things besides balance is also structural correctness. Because if we're going out and selecting a yearling or a 2-year-old that we're going to take to the show pen, we want this horse to last for a long time. We don't want to just show them till they're 4 or 5 and then have all kinds of hock problems and knee problems. So I really look at the conformation of the horse's front legs because the front end is where the horse carries most of their weight. We also we want the horse to be straight from the side. We also want them to be correct from the front and not have a lot of deviations in the knee from the front. The hocks for some type of horses, especially cutting horses, reining horses, roping horses that stop hard and use their hocks in their performance, we've got to make sure that they're strong and straight in their hocks, because if we don't, we're going to develop problems in those areas. Last thing that I look for very quickly is I want a horse that's attractive to look at, okay? Because I may want to have to resell this horse someday. So I look at conformation, balance, structural correctness, muscling, and then I want this horse to be attractive. I want them to have an attractive head. It's nice if they have some attractive markings that catch the public's eye. I want them to be a nice color that's in demand by the general public. That's why some types of horses like roans and grays and those type of horses are a little bit easier to sell, because a lot of people want those colors. So that's something that you need to consider in selecting a young prospect. So look at all these things, take them into consideration before you select your young performance prospect, and then you'll have something that is very usable for a long period of time and hopefully has some resale value as well.